So welcome everyone. Obviously, it's October 7th tonight. It is the U10 and 11 CMSA Town Hall. Really grateful that so many people have joined tonight. There was over 1,000 people that viewed the link and almost 200 people registered. So big numbers that are curious and that are wanting to learn and wanting to have some burning questions answered. So we're going to do our best tonight to do all of that and to also hopefully give you some information that'll make this season even better than one's previous. Or if you're new, a fantastic season for you and your child. And I want to welcome you all and also acknowledge the land that we gather and we work and we play and we live on. And in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis Nation, Region 3, and all people who make their homes in Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. I'd encourage you to become curious about the elders and traditional keepers of the land upon which we now live on. So I've already given you a brief introduction to Melissa. She's going to be hanging out in the background and typing away and answering questions. My name is Jordan Stewart. I'm really grateful to be with you tonight and really honored to be sharing some information with you. I'm the CMSA technical manager, and really this slide is a little outdated now, and it should say coaches players from U4 to the university age players. Previously to working with CMSA, I worked for Alberta Soccer as the regional coach for Southern Alberta and the Alberta Recs director. So my role was around player development, district outreach, and coach education when I was working for Alberta Soccer. And really across the province, I've got experience working through grassroots clubs up in Edmonton, pro academies that unfortunately no longer exist with FC Edmonton, obviously the PSO, youth national team development systems, colleges, universities, etc., etc. I've got a fairly robust experience within the game here in Alberta at a lot of different levels, and I'm really grateful to try and make the game better here in Calgary. Just want to try and frame tonight's discussion with really a short snapshot of what we try to do every year, and we try to do more and we try to do better every year. So a quick video to hopefully help anyone who's new understand what we're doing, but then also maybe to acknowledge the fantastic work that not only us, but our member clubs and our coaches, all the parents and players and referees and administrators and everyone involved in the ecosystem here in Calgary has put in over the last year. So truly, thank you. If you were a part of that year, and we haven't made our year in review video for 2024 quite yet, it's coming very shortly, but we're thankful for you, for your children, and for everyone who's making this a fantastic place for the game to grow and really trying to develop it and push it to new heights that it's never seen before. I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about really the most important people in the room, which in my opinion is always the players. And speaking to the Canada Soccer Player Pathway, you'll see here the kind of convoluted diagram, but it's really quite simple once I start to explain it. So You'll see here an overlay of where CMSA actually operates. So in stages 1, 2, 3, and 7. Some of you might be asking, well, what happened to 4, 5, 6? Well, 4, 5, and 6 are actually operated by other entities like the APDL, which would be our train to train and our development league here in Alberta, that PDP program, and also then into Rex programs, into high performance programs now with Alberta Soccer, Whitecaps academies, all the way through up into youth national teams and into a professional structure, which I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the newly formed Calgary Wild, which will be our women's professional team that starts in 2025. If you're not going to play professionally, that's no problem. There's still plenty of opportunity to be soccer for life or even competitive for life within the Alberta Major Soccer League, the numerous CUSA and women's leagues here in the city, or potentially transfer over into some of the university college, NCAA, League One, USL2, or UWS leagues that have operated here in Alberta. We're tremendously lucky that we have all of these opportunities and pathways for the players here in Calgary, and it's really a testament to how the game is growing and blossoming here. And everything that we're trying to do really is underpinned by a couple of key documents. One of them being long-term player development, which is starting to show a bit of its age. It was launched in 2008, 2009, and it's since been refreshed into the Canada Soccer grassroots standards. So people might wonder, well, wait a minute, why do we do things so differently compared to places like Edmonton or even Okotoks or Lethbridge or Kamloops? Well, at the end of the day, we are guided by this document. It's a 2-page document that Canada Soccer has released that really outlines how grassroots soccer should be run in this country. And we're working our absolute best to be in full alignment of this year round. And this manifests itself into our CMSA program handbook that we release every single season. So I'd encourage you maybe to review that program handbook, because we give this to the clubs for the clubs to then open up their registration and base their information off of this program handbook. I'd ask you to maybe have a look and see if it's accurate, see if it's aligned as well, and also to maybe see if there's any other information in there that we might have missed as well. Sorry, I'm just going to answer one quick question. Slides made available after the meeting. The recording is always on YouTube. And so I would encourage you to maybe follow Calgary Minor Soccer's YouTube account as it'll be located there likely tomorrow. Another piece that I think you should acknowledge your club's hard work for is around attaining the Canada Soccer Club licensing. And this is no small feat and no small task. And we've got a bit of a top and bottom. Not that bottom is worse and top is better. What they've done is they've just met different standards and a different number of criteria. Our SQS holders have gone through a process where they have been rubber stamped essentially by Canada Soccer to say, this is a good club. And our National Youth Club license holders have gone through a fairly stringent process where Canada Soccer has said, this is also a good club. And we're really, really proud that all of our 23 member clubs have made it through this licensing process. There were some bumps and bruises along the way, but we've all got there. And we have clubs that are continuing to push on through the licensing levels and continuing to improve their practices to thus better the game, to better their coaches, and to better their players at the end of the day. And so what does some of that SQS and club licensing mean? Well, what it means is that there's minimum standards and really coach training standards for all of the teams. And so we went through a consultation with our clubs and built this collaboratively with them to determine where a modified safe sport roster and a full safe sport roster kicks in. And the line was in between U11 and U12 when we see maybe more coach training that's needed for that U12 and plus age group compared to the U3 to U11 age groups. And how did this boil down? Well, part of it is around monitoring. So we work with our clubs to monitor their coach training, to assist in providing opportunities for them to access coach training in an economical way. and also to monitor and audit and make sure that our clubs are meeting certain standards and that our players are getting a certain quality of environment as well. And so clubs used to put one person that's met all the standards on all of the rosters and then say, well, all of our rosters are eligible now. We're not doing that anymore. We're needing all coaches that to meet the required training criteria to be eligible on those rosters. And also it's about clubs being accountable to doing what's right, not just what's easy. And really, at the end of the day, their willingness to adhere to basic standards are going to determine their longevity in the game here and in soccer in Calgary. Some of you might be coaching, some of you might be going through this, and some of you might be wondering, well, what are some of those coaching standards? Well, the coaching standards are really here on your screen. And you'll see that the U10 and U11 age groups that we're talking about tonight have been increased incrementally. Previously in CMSA, before club licensing, we asked for all of our coaches to do a police clearance with a vulnerable sector search and also complete Respect in Sport, the activity leader course. Now what we've done is we've shifted it to also include the theory portion of the Learn to Train course, and we highly recommend the practical training as well. So the on-field component to give coaches a few more tools in their toolbox. Now, someone might say, is that enough? Well, this is where we're at right now. This is also in alignment with all of the modified Safe Sport roster requirements that I spoke of earlier, that our clubs essentially are accountable to Canada Soccer and to the system. And so we put together documents to try and make sure that our coaches understood, one, where to start and where to go, and then what was optional and supplemental to that and maybe highly recommended to be completing as well. We're also making it accessible for coaches to complete those practical sessions, or as accessible as we can, in a very log-jammed season with sparse facility availability. And we're trying to create opportunities for coaches to better themselves throughout this season and throughout the year. I just mentioned a very log-jam season, and some people might be wondering, well, how do we actually make a schedule and what does that look like? Well, it's now an 8-step process because we've streamlined a couple of things. And what we do is we go to the clubs and we say, please give us all of your teams, how many teams you're entering, what leagues are they entering in, what ages, what tiers, etc. And then what we do is we bring all of the club technical leaders into a room and we say, right, here's where everyone's put their teams in. Is this correct? You now have the opportunity to make it right, to say, oof, our teams needs to move over here, or maybe they need to go down an age group, or maybe they need to play up, or whatever. And it allows them to challenge each other and hold each other accountable. That's that step 2 with the Club Connect. We then send that all out to the clubs again to make sure that we haven't made a clerical error, that there hasn't been a misread in the discussion that was had, and we finalize those divisions with our clubs. We then compare that to the field permits that we have that are supplied by the City of Calgary and also Shane Holmes West Soccer Dome and private facility ownership groups like the Macron Performance Center, and then city-owned and partnership groups like Shouldice. We try to build that schedule and we match up all of the teams with all of the fields. We manipulate it as best we can, and there's 2 ladies in the office that work tirelessly for weeks on end trying to get this right, or as close to right as we possibly can. And then, of course, we release it. Then what happens? Well, everyone wants to go and play on tournaments and has to reschedule games all over the place. So we end up rescheduling games and moving games, and we do it all again every single season. This season, and Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was about 4,700 games that were scheduled, and there is very, very few open game slots that are left to reschedule things and to move things around.
I can tell you there's less than 100 fields left over after the ladies finish the schedule.
There you go. So thanks, Melissa. I appreciate that. And there is not a ton of field availability left. So when someone goes, well, why can't we play 9v9? Well, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? What I would say is maybe ask the politicians in this city why we can't do that. And hopefully they'll have an answer for you as to why we seem to lag so far behind other regions in the country in terms of facility development from our municipal government. Not a political spiel, and I'm not trying to turn it into that way, but I'm just saying that if there's a call to action, that is where we can definitely have a call to action. Also, I want to make sure that we outline this piece in terms of what our conduct expectations are. There is a player, there's a parent, there's all of these codes of conduct. So I'd ask you to please review it. And we all on this call tonight are going to set the standard of what's acceptable and not acceptable. And I leave the picture on your screen there about wrestling with a pig, because really, if we want to get down and dirty and wrestle with pigs all the time, well, we know what's going to happen. The pig's actually going to enjoy it, and we're just going to get covered in you know what. So can we elevate ourselves a little bit? Can we make sure that we're creating a positive sport environment for our players, for our coaches, for our referees, for each other, that we can coexist in and really have a beneficial and a positive ecosystem within the city? And part of that role really comes down to the field marshals as well, which play a vital role in helping to create that positive sport environment. Each team will have one amongst the parent group that will be wearing an orange armband. And our expectation this year is for those people to be involved in a pre-game chat with the referees, with the coaches, with the captains, the player captains of the team down at field level, so that that referee can outline their expectations for the match as well, maybe give you some insight in terms of how they see the game going and how they choose to referee as well, because not all the referees are going to be exactly the same. The laws say something, and how those get interpreted and what each situation poses is slightly different, and it is an interpretation. We also want to make sure that these field marshals can help our referees. And so that if there are parents that are getting out of hand, or spectators or siblings or anyone, that something can be said to them, because we're here to cheer and not to critique. And that's how we want this environment to be running. You've just heard that there's 4,700 games this year. Obviously, there's a handful of staff at CMSA. We can't be at 4,700 games. So we're asking for support. We're asking for help. And you have a ton of power when you're a field marshal to really be positively impacting the games and the sporting experience for the players. Couple other kind of global pieces that I want to highlight quickly. The Empower Her initiative is around our women and girls and trying to support females within the game of soccer. We've launched an initiative for our female referees called She Can Ref, where we're trying to bring female referees together, discuss issues, discuss barriers, and determine strategies to help them. Because it's shocking when you think that a city of this size and scope and resources in the game doesn't even have one female official that could referee one of the Wild games this upcoming summer. Crazy when you think about it. So how we can support that and how we can continue to foster a great environment for them to develop in is what we're trying to do. We also put on numerous female-only entry-level courses to try and build that female pool of refereeing. And coming up on March 7th, we're going to have a Free Soccer Friday, which is in honor of International Women's Day. Sorry, that should say 2025, a typo on your screen. That is the next day. So inviting girls only out to play, to enjoy the game in a safe and enjoyable environment. You see here as well with the referees, I'll cruise through loads of these, but we're trying to build more capacity to have 3-person referee crews by Outdoor 25 from U12 to U19, tiers 1 to 3. Part of this is around Project Ref with Kids Sport. So if any of your children are receiving Kids Sport funding, please encourage them to become a referee. It's going to be completely free for them. All of the training, all of the gear, even their upgrading when they start to reach those levels will become free for them. Because we want to make sure that these kids can develop life skills and also earn a fantastic part-time living through refereeing. The Teal Shirt campaign is back, and you will see it in abundance in the U10 and U11 leagues. It's really an acknowledgement that these young referees are learning the game, and that if we choose to abuse someone who's learning the game, well, it's probably a shameful act to begin with, but it's also to try and raise awareness that they need a safe space to learn and develop in. Otherwise, we won't be able to have 3-person crews. We won't be able to continue to develop referees. And we've had referees that are at a FIFA standard that go and do international competitions like the World Cup come from this city. So we know it can be done. We just need to create the right climate and culture for that to happen in. We're also wrapping them in a big woolly coat with our mentorship program, where they will see a mentor throughout their first season and help them through some difficult moments and help educate and guide them. The mentors also are getting a workshop so that it's aligned and they're getting additional training. And we're offering monthly education sessions for these referees, because we hear you in those year-end surveys saying we need more referees and we need better referees. So we are working our backsides off right now to try and make sure that we can achieve that and try and continue to push to have better referees in this city for you. Part of the abuse piece is around their zero tolerance policy. So it's reportable by anyone. The referees can be taking timeouts in matches to allow people to cool down, and matches can also be abandoned without points awarded, and it won't be replayed. We're putting the power in their hands that if they feel like they're being abused, harassed, discriminated, bullied, they can stop things and walk away, and they're still getting paid. So the only people that lose out are the players, the parents, and the coaches. So we need to make sure that we're continuing to push this culture in a positive direction. One key change that you're going to see for the 2024-25 indoor season is the addition of a second official. It is our goal to have 2 referees at all games for this indoor. Now, that's very utopian. There's going to be cars that break down. There's going to be ones that don't get picked up. There's going to be problems. There's going to be people get sick, etc. But our goal is to have 2 referees on each game. So what does that look like? Well, it's an increased opportunity for these referees in Calgary that you're going to see this at U10 games, I believe. I'm hoping that this is correct and it's not a typo, Melissa. If it is, correct me. But really their role is assisting that center referee in controlling the match. And the key word is assisting. They're going to be trained as a normal referee. So they'll know the modified laws of the game for the U10s and 11s. They'll have knowledge of the IFAB laws of the games. They'll know how to fill out game sheets, and they will have completed an entry-level course or the mini ref course for those U10s. Before the game, they're going to participate in a lot of the administrative duties and have a pre-game conversation with their refereeing partner. They're going to be standing between the 2 benches. You see there the second official between the 2 technical areas. So they will be off of the field. They will not be running the line. They will not be on the field. They will be off the field managing certain aspects of the game. And during the game, they're going to be keeping record of what's happening with the center referee so that there's no discrepancies. And they're going to be helping to control some of the technical areas. So if there are problems there, they can say, hey, we need to abandon this one, or you need to calm down. They're also going to supervise substitution processes, manage field surroundings, and remove anyone from the game sheet that's not supposed to be in a technical area. As you can see, there's a lot of detail that's been built around this, but they're going to be helping that referee in making good decisions. They're also going to be a second set of eyes for that referee, looking at anything off the ball that might have happened. Because we get submitted match video of, say, a center forward that's approaching a goalkeeper on a goal kick, and the goalkeeper pushes that center forward down, and the referee hasn't seen it because their back is to it. Well, now, with that second official, we're hoping to have a better game that's safer for all players. I mentioned as well the pre-game script with the field marshals and coming down to field level. So the referees are going to be expected to deliver this pre-game script around field marshals. Please help in ensuring parents and spectators are supportive of the kids on the field and producing a positive sporting environment. Team officials, please coach and support your players. It's really that simple. Captains, this is what you can expect from me today and how I prefer to referee, with some examples. And as a referee, I'm making a commitment and I'm learning. I'm looking for you all to support the game and have empathy, and let's all have a great game today. So we want to make sure that we're humanizing people and that we can create connections across all stakeholders in the game. This could happen in terms of referees not showing up. Again, I said the utopian piece that we hope to achieve, but there might be the odd game that referees don't show up. Well, what happens? Well, both teams agree on who's going to be refereeing that game. The game is still played, and if teams decide to split each game half and half, no problem. Maybe there's a parent or sibling that's a trained referee that's sitting up in the stands, and maybe they can come down and get paid to do that game as well if they are a trained referee. Lastly, around some additional coach education. I know this is wordy. We'll get into the meat and potatoes of the U10s and 11s right away here, I promise. But we're continuing to produce additional coach education through our technical culture series, which is around connecting our local coaches, our clubs, with not only local, national, but also international experts in certain areas. So we've had Chris McKeag speak about navigating professional football and finding an agent and professional trials and all of these pieces. And that video is available on our YouTube. So if your kid says, I want to go play pro, it's an invaluable resource to go dig up on our YouTube account and sit down and watch it with them, but also then reflect on the information that's given there. And then Martin Vlick as well was talking to coaches about how to develop a methodology and a coaching style as the head of the Czech FA Coach Education and Methodology Department. So again, international leaders that are connected in with top minds at UEFA and FIFA that are sharing their knowledge. There's also a MLS Next Goalkeeper Education Series, Body Confident in Sport webinar that's coming up right away, and Making Headway, the concussion awareness and concussion prevention course has also been refreshed. Lastly, I promise, and thank you for sticking with us here through all of these bits, I want to mention Free Soccer Friday, which is a phenomenal opportunity for your kids to go and have an unstructured environment to go and play in. Develop a ton of social and life skills to advocate for themselves, to make new friends, meet people, and really try and connect the community. The next dates are on your screen. They're all at the Calgary Soccer Center for the next little while. Again, we hinted at facility availability. This is evident in it. And I'd encourage you to maybe bring your kid out. Again, unstructured, it's mixed age. They go in and they advocate and they play what they want. We don't have obviously an air quality policy or a lightning policy in the indoor, but we do have an adverse driving conditions policy. And really all CMSA games proceed unless the city of Calgary has closed roads due to winter conditions. So if roads are undrivable for whatever reason, that is what will happen. And we'll make sure to communicate that if or when that does happen. Okay, I'm going to come up for air. I'm going to check the chat quick. Excellent. Perfect. Melissa is smashing it through the chat. So thank you very much, Melissa. We'll keep rolling. So the 10s and 11s, I hinted at that grassroots standards. Well, what is that exactly? Well, it outlines for the 10s and 11s the game format that we're supposed to be playing with them. You'll see here that the coach training is likely a little out of date right now. Okay, so that's before that modified safe sport was introduced. You'll see game durations. You'll see maximum game time per players per day. You'll see all of these things rinsed to align the game in this country. You'll also see on the bottom here, pass or dribble in terms of restarts. And we'll talk about what that looks like and really what that is here very shortly. You'll also see other pieces here around a retreat line, right? If required, 1/3. Well, we've chosen to go with a half, and we'll explain why. And this is one of the areas that we're not 100% aligned with Canada Soccer quite yet. And I'll also explain why. You'll also see here, they're recommending game day formats as a festival format. And we know how culturally difficult that is for people here in Calgary, for our players, for our coaches, for our parents, for the ecosystem. We get it. So we're choosing again to be slightly misaligned there and offer more of a league format for that. In keeping consistent with long-term player development, there are no public scores and standings for the U10s and 11s. But what you can expect is from the developmental crew, you're going to have mostly, and I say mostly, regionalized play. We say mostly because, again, it's facility dependent, and some of the West games will have to take place over on the East because we just do not have another option. We wish we did, but we don't. You also see a slightly shorter schedule with 14 games. The Dev Pluses will play citywide. They have a slightly longer schedule, and there's 1, 2, and 3 subgroups that allow for potentially more meaningful competition there. You might find this within the 10s and 11s. They operate within what's called an open roster environment where we don't track play up opportunities or call ups. We allow clubs a ton of flexibility to say, well, this child is new to soccer and they might not be at their peer group's level yet. Let's play them in this group or in this environment, or let's move these ones into this one. And it allows for a lot of flexibility to account for both relative age effect, but also for early or late developing players. And so one of these strategies baked within that open roster concept is around age exemptions, which was formerly called bio-banding, pardon me. And bio-banding is the process of grouping athletes on the basis of attributes associated with their growth and maturation, so their height, their weight, their speed, etc., rather than their chronological age. They're all in age groups right now, but some of them are very different animals in that zoo. They're going to vary consistently in terms of that biological maturation at these age groups and arguably a couple of age groups more. So we're allowing for a very flexible player placement process, and we do have a process in place for that. Our expectations of the clubs is that they're doing it for the right reasons, for developmental reasons, to maintain kids within the game and to make sure that we've got a great match for those children to play in. Because just because they're 10 years old, they could actually they could biologically, be like an 8.5-year-old, or they could biologically be a 12 or 13-year-old. So we're allowing our clubs a tremendous amount of flexibility to do this properly. You will also be seeing, hopefully, we're working through some challenges, definitely with some facility providers with this, but 6x12 goals for the U10 and 11 games. There's a lot of moving pieces and logistics to deal with in terms of swapping goals out and trying to have full alignment, but we are trying to work with those facility providers to move towards this in our indoor seasons as well. You'll also see field standards. This is all available on our website, and you can review that. Our indoor fields meet these field standards, but you might not see things like this this secondary goalkeeper and penalty area and this D as field markings on some of those fields. Okay, so an awareness that some of the stitched in lines do not look the same, but we've got a solution for that. We want to make sure that there's clarity on the Dev and Dev Plus definitions. There is a video on our YouTube that's an educational resource there, but Dev Plus is really for those kids who love soccer. They might want more activity per week, and maybe they're looking for a more full-time program. So I'd again ask you to review what your club has communicated and what they're really advocating for within this. You'll notice there, it said nothing about ability. In the developmental area, they might have a love of a variety of activities. You might go camping, maybe not in the winter. Maybe you do. Maybe it's ice fishing in the winter. You might have music or dance or hockey or other sports, etc., that they're deeply involved in. And maybe they're looking for more of a part-time program with less activity per week. Again, no mention of ability there at all. And we know that there's going to be some lopsided games within some of these age groups. So we're empowering coaches, again, to do what's right for the players. Because it's not shameful if I just need to put on another player because my team really is having a bad day and is down by 4 goals. So that 4-up, 1-up is really to allow the game or the teams to maybe be more evened out. Because if this was on a playground, well, they would just add more players to that team and make it tougher for the team that's having a lot of success. We've also allowed coaches and teams the opportunity to mix them up. If it's just not going well, just mix up the 2 teams and make it meaningful and make it a great environment that you get something out of it. And lastly, you can swap the goalkeepers as well. So if one is in possession and working with their feet and not facing a lot of shots, well, can we swap them? So the other one can then work in possession. The other one might be facing a lot of shots as well. Again, there's an educational resource on our YouTube that you can find there. I've chatted briefly around match standards and field standards, and really the match timings will all be standardized throughout the leagues, and you'll be playing with a size 4 ball. And now into some of those 7v7 modifications that are in alignment with Canada Soccer's grassroots standards or just slightly off of those. And you'll see things like retreat lines, you'll see things like dribble-ins, and we won't be having offside in these leagues. So the modified laws of the game really boil down to these pieces. Well, what do penalty kicks look like as well? And making sure that we're having proper subs at stoppages. So as these players have come through potentially a grassroots league where it's very on the fly, come off, come on, etc., we're trying to formalize things and tighten it up just a little bit, and also helping our young referees to understand and build good habits around this. So why do we need a retreat line? Some people will say, well, there isn't a retreat line in the game that we see on TV on a Saturday morning. And there actually is a retreat line there. It's the penalty area. The 18-yard box acts as a retreat line where the opponent cannot come into that area until the ball is played. And we know that the game is ever evolving, and we've got to prepare these young players right now for the future game. Not for the current game, but for the future game. And so while I don't have a crystal ball, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to draw threads and common strings together to predict maybe what that's going to look like. And so we feel like it's going to revolve around maintaining possession with coordinated buildup from the goalkeeper. Possessing the ball is highly important, and not possessing the ball is devastating for teams. And we think that in the future, every player is going to have to make appropriate decisions based on a lot of cues from the match, while having the ability to maintain that possession that we just spoke about through the thirds of the field, so progressing it up the field, while under consistent pressure. Because if we take the data from the top levels and even the youth levels, even in Europe that we get access to sometimes, the game's getting faster, there is more repeated sprints, and players are covering about the same distance as they did a decade ago. It's just at higher intensities. So it's going to be quicker and faster all the time. And so the lens that we've tried to take is if we can affect that player's mental, social, and emotional corner first, rather than them being independent corners, if we can affect that, we should get better technical, tactical, and physical outcomes within the culture we exist in. And so the goal is to go from participation to progression to performance. And these are really the outcomes that we're looking for with a retreat line in terms of what that will do for the players across all of those corners of development. I won't go through all of these, but if you want, you can always review these through the YouTube video that will be produced. And really, at the end of the day, the data supports it. The Scottish FA did a retreat line study where when it is used, you'll see great results, right? So if on the bottom there, if the outcome, if the first pass is short from the retreat line, you get a sequence of passes 44% of the time, compared to lumping it down the field where you only get a sequence of passes 16% of the time. And you'll see it at the U9 and the U11 age groups, where if we want sequences of passes, the data becomes quite clear. If we want a possession style, right, we're going to have to be using a retreat line. Okay, so some of the data there for you to base some of your decisions on, and your maybe biases as well, or maybe challenge your biases, I should say, as well. New Zealand as well did a big study on what they call the retreating line. Same concept, right? You can increase playing out of the back, control possession, right? And 20% of long kicks from the goalkeepers were successful, resulting in a teammate in a controlled possession in the middle third of the pitch. Playing long just does not work in terms of this style of play. And teams can regain defensive positions with the retreat line. So now we're allowing coaches to maybe have coordinated pressing so that our players tactically become better, right? The feedback from coaches and players was also positive within that study. And while we haven't looked to replicate this study, we've done a fair amount of both videoing and then watching the games to really see if it passes the eye test at the end of the day. So how does the retreat line function? Again, another YouTube resource that's there in case you missed this or in case you want to reflect on it as well. So the red team here is in possession. You can see the ball on your screen. Say they take a shot and it goes out over the end line for a goal kick for the blue team. The expectation is that red team will drop behind the retreat line and the ball will then look to be played out. Now, as soon as that ball leaves the penalty area or is touched by a teammate, that red team can come and look to try and win the ball back. Okay? We'll reset it again to show you what it looks like if a teammate goes and receives inside of that goal area. So say someone comes really short. Again, we're looking for that red team behind. As soon as they touch the ball, that red team is looking to come in and they can go and press and try and win the ball back. If there's a free kick to the defending team inside their penalty area, say the red team fouls the blue team there, referee will whistle. And the red team again looks to drop off behind that retreat line. Okay, as soon as the ball leaves the penalty area or is touched by a teammate, the red team can then engage and look to go and press and win the ball back. There used to be rules in CMSA around the goalkeeper wasn't able to play long or play over half. Well, we're not saying that you must play short, because obviously with a situation like this, the cues for the goalkeeper should be play long to this player. They're at the end of the day 1v1 in a scoring position against the goalkeeper. So why wouldn't we allow that goalkeeper to recognize that cue, work on their ball striking, and find a tactical solution there and find a solution that the game is presenting? So we're saying no problem, play it long. The red team's just going to be back there, no problem. It might be tough after that, but if it's on, play. Obviously, the situation here has changed, right? The red team has dropped off a little bit more. And what we're seeing now is this blue player is now tighter marked. So the cue for that goalkeeper wouldn't be to play long anymore, but likely to play short and connect. Again, once the ball leaves the penalty area or is touched by a teammate, that red team can come and look to press. This is what it should not look like, okay? So if things are not done properly, you'll see all of the red players are not behind the retreat line. So what you'll hear is the referee blow what's called an instructional whistle, and they'll verbally ask those players to go back behind the retreat line, which is the halfway line. Some people might now think, well, why in the world is it the halfway line if Canada Soccer is saying a third? Well, none of our facilities have got a third painted on the field or stitched in. And this is yet another small change that now we're asking facility management and also, game day coordinators that are in there to maybe go and put flags out. And it's additional pieces that cause additional ripples of change and time, etc. So we're just using something simple in terms of the halfway line that will be on every single field for now. Other modifications are around the dribble-in, and when it says video coming soon as an educational resource, I'm literally going to be filming it tonight after we're done and then making sure that it's up on the YouTube tomorrow as well. Again, you'll see a ball that has gone out of play, and you'll see a red player here that's looking to dribble the ball in as opposed to throwing the ball in. What it looks like is that player is going to dribble it into the field of play and take a minimum of 2 touches on the ball. Okay? What it does not look like is putting the ball on the touchline there and then just passing it in straight away. Again, you'll hear the referee whistle that, verbally ask the player to bring it, or the team and players to bring it back, and to correct that action in terms of their dribbling the ball in then. Also incorrect, because the dribble-in is treated the same as a throw-in, and it's an indirect restart. So if you don't know what an indirect restart is, that's fine. It means that it has to be touched by another player before it enters the opponent's goal. So if they are to score straight from that dribble-in, again, you'll hear the referee give an instructional whistle and verbally bring the ball back and allow that player an opportunity to correct themselves and dribble the ball into the field. Okay? Excellent. The other thing that you're likely going to see is that the opponent is too close. So we allow 3 meters for that player in possession to dribble the ball back in. So you'll hear the center referee, this one here on the screen, blow their whistle and look to have the second official down here assist in backing that player up, because it's right there for the second official to do. If it was on the other side of the field, we would ask, obviously, the center official to do that. They'll back the opponent up 3 meters. They'll exit the field of play, and then that player is able to dribble in whatever direction that they like. Okay, so that gives you an overview of how the modified laws of the game function and what it should look like and what it shouldn't look like. I'm just going to come up for air one more time and just make sure that there's no questions in the chat. Excellent. Okay. We're almost there. We're almost done tonight. This has been one of the quickest town halls, I think, in human history. So thank you.
Jordan?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just, because I don't want to get this one wrong. The question is, why aren't we doing the throw-ins? Why is the dribbling?
Great question. Actually, a phenomenal question. So let me just back up just a slide so that everyone's not just paying attention to money. Why are we not doing throw-ins? So it's a phenomenal question. Throw-ins obviously give us a physical literacy outcome, right? They have a throwing action that is involved in the game at older age groups, and also a physical literacy and a soccer action as well in potentially bringing a ball down that's brought to you aerially and controlling that while under pressure. What we find is with the U10s and 11s especially, the amount of times that we have to retake throw-ins because they're done incorrectly ends up eating up valuable game time. We see poor technique that referees try to fix or results in confusion or dispute. And so therefore, we've decided to move to a dribble-in, which will allow the game to flow more. It allows for more ball rolling time, more touches from the players, and more 1v1 duels, which is going to help us to create better and creative players over the long run. The first year that we did a dribble-in rather than a throw-in, I went out to 42 games. And we timed the average restart in terms of how long it took to get the ball back into play. It was 2.42 seconds was the average restart across all of those games. Now, I would challenge you, as your kids get older, if they have an older sibling, I challenge you to have a stopwatch on a throw-in. And if they're running and just grabbing it and throwing it, of course, they're going to get the ball in quicker. But I challenge you to beat 2.4 seconds with kids that are 9 and 10 years old that are learning a new technique to keep the ball rolling and to have more and better developmental outcomes at the end of the day. And also, if I'm brutally honest, it's in alignment with what Canada Soccer is asking. And not that I'm passing the buck. I fundamentally believe that this is a better developmental tool and outcome for these players. And we're going to see better players long term, not just because of a dribble in. I wouldn't be that pig-headed, but this is a tool that's going to assist us in doing that. The other realities are largely in the 11-a-side game. You have really only 2 players on your team that take a throw in anyway. So it becomes more of a specialized skill as it is, as opposed to a common skill within the game in terms of dribbling, passing, shooting, etc. Okay. I'm just going to go back to the chat here just for maybe another question here. Another question, just if this is the first time these modified rules have been tested in CMSA. No, these have been around now for, I think this is going into year 3 of these. And obviously it creates some disconnection for sure between the rest of the province. Even if you go to Okotoks or Airdrie, they might not be playing with a dribble-in. As their district, that's their choice. Unfortunately, we don't have a provincial standard with this yet. Canada Soccer has left it up to the provinces to be able to implement, and largely we've been the innovator, if I'm honest, and the early adopter of this to get this done. So that's something that either for better or for worse, that's the approach that we've taken, and we believe that it's going to be better for our players here in Calgary. Other question, is slide tackling allowed? Slide tackling is allowed. Slide tackling is a legal way within the laws of the game to win the ball back and challenge for the ball. The key piece that I think we miss in this environment and in this city is I don't think we actually we don't teach the skill of slide tackling and slide tackling safely. We have kids that largely emulate what they're going to see on a Saturday or a Sunday morning or down at Spruce Meadows at Atco Field there, where it's potentially not done in a safe manner. And I remember working with Rex groups and literally having to teach them how to slide tackle at 15, 16 years old because they had never been shown and taught how to correctly and safely do that. Not just safely for them that's looking to slide tackle, but also the one who might be on the receiving end of that, to be in the air, to not be planted on the ground, and to ride the tackle at the end of the day so that they don't get injured. We would obviously be advocating for players to be staying on their feet because a slide tackle at the end of the day really is an emergency tackle. And if you mistime it, you might be getting sent off, you might be getting yellow carded, or the player's going to be past you anyway, and you can't affect the game after that. So whenever I was coaching, I would be asking the players to stay on their feet, to defend on their feet, because then you can't be taken out of the game. So is it allowed? It's allowed, but we need to make sure that we're making sure that we're teaching the kids safely, and that we can make sure that they can understand when and where, and also the most important piece is the how. Comments about rug burn, totally. How many games called up to for a higher club team? Melissa, I think you could probably handle that one. Yeah, you've already handled it. Never mind then. Just a comment about confusing kids with CMSA rules vary from some other ones around the province within tournaments. Also, this could provide a different developmental outcome at the end of the day. So it could provide a different experience where, oof, get to go do throw-ins, or oof, there's no retreat line, or oh, we're not doing this or that. It just provides a different experience. Is it confusing? Sure. But that's what we can train for. We can work towards that. And at the end of the day, if it's a little confusing, that's largely going to put that player out of the comfort zone. And hopefully they grow from that. Hopefully they have a good experience from that. Is it tough in the moment? For sure. But, you know, hopefully we're seeing better outcomes as well. And at the end of the day, you should be seeing more areas around the province adopting Canada soccer standards. But they don't call Alberta the Wild Wild West for nothing. So I'll leave that there. In terms of your player fees, this is what it looks like in terms of what the clubs pass along to us. So $216 for the U10s, $226.25 for the U11s, and out of that, $10 goes to Alberta Soccer as the ASA fee. So how does that money get spent? Well, I'll tell you in just a moment, but it boils down to about that price per match day. Okay, so that's what it costs essentially when you walk through the doors for a match. So 14 matches, that's what it boils down to. Where do those league fees go? And I'm talking about the 200 and change that we collect, not the other portion. Well, it goes to the league costs at the end of the day. So booking fields for games, paying the referees, and other league related expenses. Field time in winter is not cheap. And we want to make sure we value our referees appropriately so they get paid what would be considered a fair part-time wage. There's also a portion that goes to a facility fund. So part of your fee goes towards future facility projects like the Shouldice bubble, like retrofitting now the Shane Holmes West Soccer Dome, and that renovation to turn it into an 11-a-side turf pitch. There's also a donation to Kids Sport where Kids Sport actually fund, I think it's over $500,000 in soccer fees every single, it's either year or season. So we want to make sure that we're back supporting Kids Sport because Kids Sport is a large part of why so many kids are able to play soccer here in Calgary. Some of those fees go to Alberta Soccer and Canada Soccer, which I've mentioned, and then a small portion helps to pay for the staff at CMSA to try to ensure that the soccer in Calgary is efficiently running, continues to innovate at the end of the day. and an awareness that everyone needs to know that if and when an injury happens to your child, you need to be making sure that you're filling out the form that's located on Alberta Soccer's website. It has to be filled out within the first 30 days of injury. And what's going to happen is you're going to use your personal insurance funding first, and then the Alberta Soccer insurance will commence after that personal insurance amount runs out. We know that potentially with some injuries, physio and rehab expenses add up incredibly quickly and exhaust that personal insurance very, very fast. So it's important that if it happens, even if you think it's not going to be that major, I'd still encourage you to fill it out so that there's documentation there and that there can be something to go on if ever challenged, right? Just some other chats that I think Melissa has answered. Melissa, if there isn't, feel free to come off of mute or just fire me through a text like you are. Oh, no problem. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play another short video in terms of just how we see this season going. And really everything's about to start now. We're about a week away from kickoff as of today, and we're really excited for that. So I'll leave you with this. I'll be quiet and let you enjoy.
All right.
And so really what starts is community starts, fun starts, sportsmanship starts. All of these beautiful things are about to start in a week, and we'd encourage you to make sure that you're positively contributing. And we also want to make sure that we say thank you to you because we're incredibly blessed to have a growing and vibrant game in this city. And we are honored to be the stewards of that game. And we take it very, very seriously to try and help direct the game in a good direction down here in Calgary. If you need or when you need to contact CMSA, please, you can connect with us on any of those social media platforms, or you can look to email us at that inbox and it'll make sure that it gets filtered to the right person within the organization. You can also feel free to give us a call at the number listed there, but we'd encourage you, if you've got club-specific questions, to please go through your club first, and then the club can also elevate them to us. I leave every presentation with that image on the left-hand side there, where we're making some serious ground right now in terms of pulling the game in a similar direction. It's never going to be in the same direction. We can't guarantee that, but at least if we can go in a similar direction, we're going to have great success here in Calgary in the game, as opposed to operating on the left-hand side of that picture where we're all going in our own direction and making very, very limited progress. So our clubs have been fantastic. They've bought in to numerous things. They've been great stewards of the game as well. And we're continuing to try and build things together with them and with yourselves. So thank you again on behalf of everyone within the organization, from your clubs, for tonight. And thank you for your curiosity and your engagement tonight. I'm going to just go back into the chat just to make sure that there's no other pressing questions or any issues that we need to deal with. And I will stick around for about another 5 minutes or so, or if there's still questions, we'll stick around and answer them for everyone. Saw a few reactions, people clapping. Really, we should be applauding you. So thank you for the engagement and the curiosity tonight. And thank you for allowing your kids to play this beautiful game that can genuinely change lives. So thank you. You're all very welcome. I appreciate the comments in the chat. So thank you all very much. If there aren't any kind of further questions, what we'll look to do is we'll look to end the meeting. A recording of this is going to be available on our YouTube account as I promised. This will all get saved. It will get clipped a little bit tomorrow, and then it will get uploaded, hopefully ASAP, so that if you need to reflect on it or share it, it is there as a resource for you to share ahead of kickoff or throughout the season as well. So thank you all very much. I'm going to hit end meeting now and wish you all a great night.